Good morning and welcome back to day 338 of our 365 days of Bible study. We are continuing to look at those bits of St. Luke's Gospel which only he has. And today it's the story of Zacchaeus, Luke chapter 19 verses 1 to 10. I'll turn you around so you can read my translation with me. Jesus went into Jericho. And as he passed through, look, there was this man called Zacchaeus, a rich manager of tax collectors. He wanted to see what Jesus was like, but he was prevented from doing so by the crowd, but also on account of his lack of height. He ran on ahead of Jesus and climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When Jesus arrived at the place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Zacchaeus, get a move on. Come down. I need to stay at your house today." So he hurriedly came down and happily welcomed him. When the crowd saw what happened, they could be heard muttering, "Look, he's gone in there to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus just stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, sir, I'll give half my wealth to the poor. And if I've defrauded anyone, I'll pay them back 4 times what I took." And Jesus said to him, "Today, salvation has arrived in this house. Even this man is a descendant of Abraham. Yes, the Son of Man has come to look for the lost and to save them." To look for the lost and to save them. Just how does someone from outside of Judaism come to inherit the promises made to Abraham and Moses? This question must have been in the minds of many a God-fearing Gentile. Jesus wants to give such people a way in, and many a story such as this must have been on the lips of the early Christian preachers. They will have used people such as Zacchaeus as examples. He was no longer Jewish. His community will have excommunicated him. They will have cast him out for fraudulently making huge sums of money out of some kind of tax franchise, which he will have been managing on behalf of the Romans. So he was worse than a Gentile in the eyes of his community. And the story shows how even such a person as he could be saved. What did he want? Why did he want to see Jesus? What did he want to see him for? He must have heard something about him, and that something must have pricked his conscience. He and his family were now strangers in their own land, in their own community. Jesus, hearing about Jesus, had stirred something in him. Urgently, he needed to find out something more. There was a glimmer of a hope of salvation in Zacchaeus' mind. He threw caution to the winds and climbed that famous sycamore tree where Jesus saw him, knew him, and loved him. Being no respecter of social norms, Jesus, of course, invites himself to stay with this sinner, and in so doing welcomed him back into fellowship with the God he had deserted. That welcome prompted him to despise the riches he had accumulated and the fraudulent activity that had brought those riches to him. By his grateful actions in giving to the poor and repaying the victims of his fraud much more than the law of Moses required, he demonstrated how thoroughly his life had been changed. Here Luke has shown his Gentile readership one way to overcome not having a Jewish background. If Jesus can bring rejects like Zacchaeus back into God's family, surely he can bring anyone in. The welcome is unconditional. But those who receive that welcome will need to look to themselves and see that they live lives that prove they appreciate it. Well, tomorrow we come towards the last part of St. Luke's Gospel and we enter the narrative of Christ's Passion. And there we see some of the things that only Luke will bring us. I'll see you tomorrow.